Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah podcast, streaming live at TruthSeekah.com, your source for spiritual and inspirational music, teachings, and media. This show is designed to help you grow in your walk with Christ and advance the kingdom of heaven. And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is the TruthSeekah podcast. I'm your host, TruthSeekah. Excited, delighted to be here for another episode, man. We're going to cover it all things spiritual. It's what we do. Got an awesome show lined up for you guys. Want to say a huge thank you to everybody who is supporting my work via Patreon. This is a listener-supported, listener-funded show. You guys are co-creators. Couldn't do this without your help. So thank you guys for believing in the vision and coming on with me and helping me to get this out to the masses. You guys rock. Shout out to you guys. If you'd like to support, head on over to patreon.com/TruthSeekah. There you get access to my entire discography of music. There's different tiers to get access to the guided meditations. Our Thursday night School of the Mystics, which is the community aspect to what we're building here. We do breath work, guided meditation, prayer, practicing our prophetic abilities, and really just tapping into deep discussion, rolling ideas off of one another. So if you're looking for a tribe, looking for a community, some people to talk to, make sure you link in with us. Join us on Thursday nights. You get access for $1. Check it out. It's on Patreon. Also, my book is here. If you have not got a chance to get it, the physical copies are available at TruthSeekah.com. Also, just this morning, I got the email. Long waiting. It's available on Audible. The audio book is available, ladies and gentlemen. You can get Spirit Realm narrated by TruthSeekah. I took the days and days and days. I did a chapter a day, and it was a long process. So I got that out. Finally got approved. It's finally up. You can actually get a free copy. You can get it for free, a free audiobook download by going to the link in the description. That's audibletrial.com/TruthSeekah. And the link is there. Just click on it. Sign up there. Get your free book. Check it out. So it's finally here. I'm happy for that. Also, let's see what else we got going on. We just set up another retreat. This is going to be our first co-ed retreat. I've been doing men's retreats for the last couple months. We've done 3 this year so far. They've been amazing, connecting with beautiful souls from across the globe. And we've been having so much fun and getting into stargazing, ceremony, bunch of really cool stuff. You've seen the pictures. You know what we do. But now we're opening up our first co-ed retreat where my wife, Erin, will be assisting with me, and it's going to be really fun. So that is scheduled for December the 12th, 12/12/20. I will say that seating is very limited, like very small. I think we have 6 seats left on for the male and the female. So get it ASAP. If you want to get in on it, do not put it off. I know it's in December, but you got to book it early. It's just what it is. We've talking to some other friends about possibly doing something in Sedona as well, doing a retreat in Sedona. So that'll be announced in the future as well. But check it out, TruthSeekah.com. All the info is there. Check it out. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into today's discussion. My guest today is David Ditchfield. David, welcome to the TruthSeekah podcast, my friend. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. Yeah. Thanks for having me along. It's
awesome, man. Here. So I've been checking out your story, and this is a subject near and dear to my heart. And as much as I research it and have even my personal mystical encounters with what seems to be the afterlife, or whether it's through plant ceremony or really deep levels of meditation or whatever, there's still a bit of fear there about the afterlife. And so you have a story that really, I think, eliminates the fear of death, right? Of what goes on the other side, of there's something that happens. And so, man, your new book is available. and I want to talk about that. But just to kind of
Sure.
set up your story, I guess, for who you are, what you bring to the table. Just kind of give a quick introduction, man. We'll start there.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm based in the UK. I live in Cambridge. I was living most of my life before my accident and my near-death experience. I was living in London, and so I was. I'd left school without qualifications, so life was a struggle for me, to be honest with you. I was just scraping a living, picking up manual labouring work wherever I could, which was fine. But but like all capital cities, it's very competitive. But but life was about to change for me. Yes. So yeah, as I say, I was pretty much down on my luck. My sister could see that I was struggling. I was down. I was down to my last penny, basically. She said, "Look, come and hang out with us, with the family." So they lived out in Cambridgeshire, out in the country. So I went up there to sort of stay there for a few weeks. And a friend that I'd met a couple of weeks ago in London, we just kind of hit it off. We had this connection, and she wanted to come up and stay. So she did. So she stayed for a few days. And so my life was about to change on the day that I took her down to the rail station. She got to return to London. And that's when it all turned around for me, basically, at that point. Yeah.
So what happened? So you had this run in with a train, I guess.
That's right. Yeah.
For the lack of a better word, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. That's a new one. I like that.
Running. I'm sorry. No pun.
No, don't
no
be sorry.
Pun intended.
It's absolutely no. It's fine. I know. I'm not offended. But yeah, what happened was I'd helped her onto the train carriage with her baggage, and I was just giving her a hug and just saying goodbye. And as I hugged her, I heard the emergency door buzzers go, and she said to me, "Oh, you better get off." I said, "Yeah, don't worry, I'm going." And as I stepped back, the bottom quarter of my coat got caught, trapped, I should say, in the automatic closing doors, and it was just rammed right in there, and I couldn't release it. So I looked around. There was no guard on the platform. There was nobody about. I couldn't get any help. I yelled at the top of my voice for help. Nothing happened. Then the engines started to rev up, and we just looked at each other, and I just thought, "This is it. I'm going to die," because I knew that I was not going to get that coat free. So the train started edging out, and when I say edging out, it actually accelerated at a tremendous speed. And you don't realize just how fast they pull out of stations until something like this happens. So I lost my footing. I got dragged along the platform, and then next thing I knew, I was pulled by force between the space edge of the platform and the train itself, and I went down into the depths of hell, you might say. It was just like being sucked into like this dark machine, and it was a very violent experience, and I was just thrown around helplessly, and I was fully conscious throughout all of this, so it was all very terrifying. And then I remember suddenly then being thrown to the ground, and I was suddenly laid in between the track, and the train was continuing to race on. It was a long train, so I just kept my head down, and eventually it passed on. And of course I just was in a total astonishment that I'd actually survived, because I didn't think I would do. And I was in a pretty bad way. The coat that I was wearing, it was a very good quality coat, was now shredded all the way down the left arm, and also my left arm had been cut open and cut off. In fact, it was in a bad shape. And I remember the emergency services arriving very quick, and these guys just jumped down onto the track and started working on me. They started cutting through my clothes and getting me onto a stretcher, and somehow, I don't know how, they managed to do that, but they did, because I could hardly move because I was in so much agony. And then they got me into the back of an ambulance, and we screamed down the highway at great speed with the siren going. And next thing I knew, I was in hospital, and I was in the emergency department, and all the medics were there waiting for me. And there was a lot of a lot of high tension at that point because I was losing copious amounts of blood, and then, as I say, my left arm had been severed. And then I remember there was all this. It sounded like lots of science going on. The doctors were throwing all these equations around, and they were desperately trying to save me. And I thought, this isn't looking too good. And this seemed to go on for some time. And then my family arrived in the hospital, so they came on through to see me. And obviously, they were remarkably distressed from it all because it was a horrific thing for them and a shock. You know, it's not something you expect to happen. And I remember my friend Anna, who I'd been seeing off at the train, was there as well. So I was desperate to speak to her because we'd just been through something really big. I knew that she would have been really incredibly shook up. So she came over. She was just shaking her head from side to side in disbelief, you know. And she said, "I can't believe you're alive." And I said, "I know, I am." It's amazing, isn't it? And it was pretty much at that point that I left my body. I left the trauma of lying in that hospital in absolute agony and all the, you know, tremendous high tension that was all in the atmosphere all around. And I suddenly found myself in a very calm space, and I'd left my body completely. And not only had I left my body, I'd left behind all the pain that I was going through in the hospital from the accident. But also, I just felt great, you know. I just felt like better than I'd felt because, as I said to you earlier, I was struggling living in London, and I was going through hard times, and all those feelings and anxiety and guilt that I was carrying seemed to just go. And I figured, this is it. I didn't survive it, you know. I figured this is the other side, and I'm dead. So I remember feeling very comforted. I didn't resist it. And some people do say that when they do go over, they kind of do actually resist it and want to come back. But it's not that I didn't want to come back. Life wasn't that bad, but it was just that I was happy to explore what was happening to me. I was suddenly in this beautiful place, and I looked around to see where I was, and I could see in this darkness. When I say darkness, it was a really comforting darkness. It wasn't like a sort of like a dark sort of scary sort of darkness, and it was really warm. And then I looked at these pulsating lights that started to appear all around me, and they were pulsating very slowly, and I felt comforted from these lights. And I just figured, what's going on, you know? And I lay my head back, and I realized that I was lying on what was like a huge rock, like a huge slate rock. It was almost like a medieval altar, and it felt comfortable to lie on. And I realized I was no longer clothed, but it didn't matter. I felt really comfortable on this rock. And I remember just laying my head back, and then as I looked up, there were like 3 grids of white light that were closing in on me. And as they closed in, I could not take my gaze away from this light because it was so intense and beautiful, and it just felt like it was healing me, which is odd because the intensity of that light would be too much to normally deal with. You know, it was brighter than electric light. It was almost as bright as looking in the sun, but I could do it. I could keep looking into it. So I just felt like I was being healed. And at that point, I felt there was also the presence of somebody close to me. I felt there was someone else in the room. When I say the room, I figured I was in a room. And so I lifted my head and I looked, and just at the right of my feet was this very beautiful androgynous being that was just stood there with this very pure white hair and this skin that was just like glowing light from within. And the odd thing was that I felt that this looked like a heavenly being or what have you, but he or she was just wearing like a very contemporary black T-shirt that you and I would be wearing, and there was nothing, you know, ethereal about the clothing. But what was odd was I felt that I knew this person. I kept looking at this knowing smile that was coming off this person, like a very half smile, and I felt protected and I felt comforted. But I felt, I know you. Who are you? I know who you are, and we've known each other throughout our whole lives and beyond, haven't we? You know, that's how it felt. And so then I just figured, well, I really am being protected and looked after here. So I just kind of laid my head back to just absorb everything that was going on. And then I suddenly looked and I realized that there were two other beings that arrived either side of me in female form. One of them was sort of white European, Caucasian, long brown hair, just wearing again a very contemporary brown dress. And then the girl to my left was more of Indian, Asian, American Indian in appearance and her dress as well. And they both had their hands just kind of like slowly hovering over my body as if to heal me. And the energy coming from their hands was really very powerful. It just felt like love. It just felt like an energy of love that was just like coming through. So I thought, I figured I was being prepared for something, but I didn't know what it was. So that's what I felt at that point. So I started to figure, well, my family are going to be down in the hospital. When I say down, because I knew I figured I was up somewhere, and I thought I better go have a look and check on them because they're going to be distraught. They were already in a bad shape, you know. So I looked over to my left, I looked over my shoulder and I looked over the huge rock, and instead of seeing my family down in the hospital, what I did see was this huge waterfall of stars, and it was just curving around it was like a massive. It was like looking somewhere as big as Niagara, for example. You know, something that vast. But instead of seeing water cascading over the edge, there was stars, just millions of stars, just slowly tipping over in this beautiful sparkle that was just really a sight to be seen. And I looked down, and the deeper I looked, the more galaxies I could see. It seemed to go from one into another, right down into infinity and down into depths of color as well. And there were shooting stars just dropping through the middle. It was just an incredible sight. So, of course, I knew by then that I wasn't in a small darkened room that I figured at first. I was actually in the universe itself. So it was a tremendous feeling of freedom and wonder. So I turned over, and it was interesting because normally I would have felt tremendous guilt about the fact that my family was suffering so much. Because interestingly enough, when my mother turned around to me in the hospital, I was going, "Mom, it's always me causing all the dramas in this family. I'm so sorry." And of course she said, no, it's not your fault, which it wasn't. But all that had gone. While I was up there, I just figured, okay, well, I can't see them now, but we will catch up. They'll be up here and they're going to enjoy all the wonders that I'm enjoying at this stage. So, yeah, as I turned over, I suddenly felt a presence again with me, but this one was like really huge, and it was a tunnel, a huge tunnel of white light that was just slowly closing in on me. And that tunnel was just the same intensity of the light that I'd seen in the three grids, but the energy coming from it was just so powerful that it was every molecule of my body was just vibrating. And again, it was with this sensation of love. And this tunnel of light was like being surrounded by all these flames and very dramatic flames, but I didn't feel, again, I wasn't frightened or intimidated by this sight. It was just absolutely tremendous. And I just knew straight away a lot of all the information that was coming through was telepathy. And so I was being told, this is God. This is the source of all creation. It's here in this tunnel of white light, and this is where it comes from. And so I was completely in awe of the whole sight and the whole feeling that was coming from this light. So, yeah, and it was pretty much soon afterwards that I laid my head back and suddenly found myself crashing back down to earth, and I was back in my body, and I was lying in the hospital, and all the pain and all the agony came rushing through every single vein and muscle and bone of my body. And all the high tension was back, all the noise overload. It was like, whoa. It was quite a shock to the system.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story. So when you experienced this other realm, you feel like you died and went to the afterlife when you when that happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Wow.
that's exactly what I figured at
A
that
lot of
point.
people talk about that light, right?
Yeah.
The light. People call it Jesus. The Savior. They encountered Christ, and even like talking about how you see the people shining and stuff like that, seeing silhouettes of people, but no facial expressions, but something about that beautiful white light that's radiating healing and things off of it. What do you
That's
think
right.
they were healing? Were they healing your physical body? Were they healing your spirit? What do you think they were healing when you was encountering these individuals on the other side?
Well, I mean, I figured at first that they were healing my wounds, but when I looked down at my body, as I say, I was no longer clothed. Um, I remember I was covered in this like blue sheet. It was like a silk sheet, and I felt very comforted by that sheet. But both my arms were out on top, and I looked at my arms, and then everything was back in shape. There were no wounds, not even a single scratch or a bruise. There was nothing. And I'd seen just how bad I was ripped up, but so everything was fixed. So I figured that they weren't actually healing my body as such, although my body was obviously part of my soul. Ultimately, what I realized they were healing was my soul. They were healing all the wounds and the anguish that I carried around with me throughout most of the years of my life, especially my younger adult life just before. But it's just I knew ultimately that that's what was going on because, like I said to you, it's interesting. I just felt like all that, all those wounds that I was carrying had gone, from childhood as well. There was a lot of, pain there. And that was all being healed and helped and dealt with.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Now as far as like when you came back, you brought inspiration with you, gifts and like an impartation. Um,
Yeah.
I would say a lot of it seems natural just from being in the light, right? Now you have like a new look on life, the childhood trauma and all the stuff that you've been cleansed from and healed from in this experience. So, do you think that it was just like these gifts and things that came with you? Was it just from the experience, or was these gifts and things imparted to you to bring to the earth and those things?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, what happened was when I went straight into theatre after the near-death experience, and then I was in under for about 8 hours. And when I came through in the hospital, they gave me my own room, and I was lying in there throughout the night on my own. And I remember just thinking, I was first of all, I was trying to deal with what had happened, the horror of the accidents, because I was back in my physical body, but I was also more enchanted by what had just happened with the near-death experience. I knew nothing about them at all, and I figured I was the only person it had happened to. So I thought, I've got to record this. I've got to make sure that I don't forget it because the whole world's got to hear about this once I get out. So I'd already made my mind up then that I'd never done anything like this before, but I wanted to paint it. I wanted to do like a big Renaissance style painting, that you would see in the Vatican in Rome. I wanted something that dramatic. And I thought, well, I'm going to do it. There was no sense of like, I can't do that. And you know what? Once I got out of hospital, that's the very first thing I did. My aunt had been over to visit from Canada, and she said, I'll get you a canvas because I told her all about it. So she bought me a big canvas, and I got to work on it. And what happened was when I started painting it, I realized that it wasn't me that was just painting this thing. It was just like I was being helped from the other side. I still felt a very strong connection with where I'd just been. I felt like I got this umbilical cord to attached to, and they were just giving me this information and giving me first class tuition on how to paint. And that went on I just didn't do the one. I kept going. I was painting for the next 2 years, and I was very prolific. And each time I painted, I got to know that I was being helped. I'd finish at the end of each day, and I'd look at it and I go, wow. And I'd always go, thank you so much, because I wish I still do, because I know that this is something that I call channeling. I'm channeling ideas through. And so I mean, I figured that basically that was what I'd been given, because every person who's had an NDE like myself, the first thing you do when you come back is you say, well, why did that just happen? Why have they sent me back? What is my quest? There must be a reason. And so you carry that with you. So I figured after a bit that that's what my reason was to create as much as I could, first of all visually, and then through music. That was the next thing that came, and that was my way of expressing all that had happened, and to help get across to as many people as possible that death is not to fear. That it's really not. It's not the end. It's only the stage of the next part of the journey. The soul is too powerful just to suddenly switch off like a light. It continues on. So that's basically what my quest was, to sort of like express it all through music and art. So
Yeah. There's something about being connected, and then using art to facilitate a similar experience for people, or at least the healing. Like, they don't have to die, right? They don't have to get hit by a train,
not at all,
but you can go take the healing that you receive there and bring it through a medium such as art, as far as music and painting and things like that. And when people look at your paintings, right, there's a sense of beauty, there's a sense of connectivity. It literally is a portal, right? You talk about this almost like an umbilical cord that hooks you to the other world. And then for other people, your art is an umbilical cord or a portal to see the higher dimensions and love and music and art and healing, all of that being focused and driven through the art. It's so beautiful. It's such a spiritual experience in and of itself, that now your art can heal people. They can experience a glimpse of what you saw through these representations.
That's it, yeah. And also, as I say, the music as well, because it's given it a different dimension. There's you've got one dimension, which is the visual, and then the other dimension, which is listening to music. So I have found that people who've sort of either just lost a loved one, or they're also they're maybe getting towards the end of their stay here, that they get comfort from both, from the music and the art, because what they see in some of the paintings or hear in the music is something that's not, it's beyond me. Do you know what I mean? It's they're kind of connecting with that heavenly source themselves. There's this what some people saying, but quite a few people say it, and that's great. That's what I want. I want to hear people say that, rather than people saying, "Hey, that's a great piece of music you wrote." Because I kind of figured, no, I can't carry that, because it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to another source. That created that music.
That's so good. I remember, like, when I started doing spiritual hip hop and stuff like that, and people would say, and still to this day, the greatest compliment is that I can feel the presence of God or the Holy Spirit through your music, through the art. When you speak, I feel, and it's like, today, like, it's the best compliment ever, because that's the reason behind it, right? That's the motivation. And the beautiful thing, I'm sure it's similar for you, because you're talking about almost channeling the art, right? And I'm the same way. I have lyrics come to me and inspiration and videos and how to put words together that I don't think I'm good enough to make up. So in the end, when a song is done, or you birth something, I do guided meditations as well, and they're just kind of tapping into that flow state and allowing the stuff just to keep flowing and flowing and flowing. And then there's a point where it feels like it cuts off. But once you create that art, do you feel like a beneficiary as well, that as far as like you get to listen to it, look at it as like, wow, this is healing me as well. Like, this is, because I'll create art too, and it's like, I don't feel like it was me, but I'm getting healed from it too. I'm being taken on a journey, and I'm learning as I'm writing, that kind of thing too. That's the interesting thing about the whole if you want to use the word channeling or intuitive art as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because I remember when the first piece of music that I wrote, which was called The Divine Light, which was actually about my near-death experience. When it was, well, I remember going to the very first rehearsal, and I didn't know how it was going to sound, because I can't read or write a note of music, and I just thought, how's this going to come out? But I had it in a faith that it would happen, and I remember walking into the rehearsal and the opening chords came in, the opening sort of strings, these violins, and I knew instantly that I'd nailed it, and it was like, wow. And I actually enjoyed listening to it rather than stood there in complete sense of like nervousness and feeling out of depth. I just enjoyed it because I thought, and as I went to the concert and I sat on the front row, they gave me and my family front row seats. And it was brilliant because I just sat there enjoying my own music, and I enjoyed the atmosphere that was in that whole arena, not arena, but this it was like a huge church actually, and which is also a venue, and it was sold out. So that was brilliant in itself. But I knew that everyone was totally in listening to that whole thing. You couldn't hear a pin drop. It was really, the atmosphere was just electric, and it was beautiful. I thought, wow, everyone's getting this. And there was no sense of like ego, there's no sense of, everyone's loving my music. It was more like, great, everyone's, sharing my experience, hopefully. And people would turn around afterwards and come up to me and people I'd never met. And that was great,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there are there tears associated with it at times? Is it like this overwhelming sense of presence of like knowing how beautiful and how special it is that you were able to help facilitate that? Like
Yeah,
overwhelming.
the emotions are constantly there. I'm open to the sensitivity that I've started to realize is there within me. That's why I suffered so much throughout my life, because I was sensitive, and now I'm realizing how to use that sensitivity in my creativity and to sort of embrace it, if you like. It's so yeah, I mean, it's there are lots and lots of times still now that things will happen where I'll get like that spiritual moment where I just think, wow, I just realized that I've been helped there big time, and something's just happened, something's come through, whether it's a piece of music or whatever, or just talking to people as well. Just I can have a conversation with people and just the feedback that comes back. You were talking earlier about retreats and stuff like that. It sounds great, your work and that. And I was invited to go to a retreat in the south of France last summer, and that was beautiful. We was in the middle of this retreat on this kind of like mountain. There was no one around except for these buzzards flying over in the sky, and they asked me to talk about my near-death experience, and I said, yeah, but I didn't know who would be there. But it was mainly women. Well, it was all women, in fact, who were at this retreat, and they were all end-of-life doulas. I don't know if you've heard of them at all. They're like soul midwives,
Oh, okay.
and they were great, because I hadn't heard of them before, so I'd never heard of that phrase even. And I felt humbled by their presence, because they basically help people, in hospices and stuff towards their end. And so, but they were really keen to hear my story, and I sat down and told everybody, and we had the music playing, and then I had them painting in the afternoon, and it was just amazing. And I just felt this beautiful piece throughout the whole day, and the sun was blazing down, but I just felt I was being really helped by the other side throughout that whole day, and the energy was just flowing, and it was like a circular motion. We all enjoyed it, and we all got something from it. So yeah, so that was another dimension, if you like, of channeling ideas, and then through verbal, just talking and helping people to create.
That's so awesome. So it's again, you're like a beneficiary. You get to tap into it as well and partake of it. And there's nothing like it when you're doing, I guess you say, God's work. Like, this is why I was put here to help people see the divine. And I think it's, again, we're talking about the spiritual talk, the portal. Like they see the image, but they see through it. They can, because it takes them a little bit deeper, asking questions and and inspiring something that's within everyone's DNA. It's where we came from. It's where we're
Yeah.
going back to, those kind of things. And there's another, like a deeper appreciation for art as well, right? As far as like seeing ancient religious art and stuff like that, that kind of speaks to you on a different level, and seeing symbols and things that are in pictures of angels and stuff like that. They all mean a little bit, they mean something different to you now, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's true. But also, you know, the power of art and music. It's like it's so important. You know, we just kind of like, it makes us stop, and it's something that I realize now that a lot of us don't do. It's something that I was guilty of, especially when I lived in London. You know, I would not allow myself to stop because of fear. I felt I had to keep going,
Yeah.
keep pushing, and trying to open doors for myself because
Yeah.
you know, it was a very competitive arena.
Do you still struggle with that at all? Does that try to come back though, or is it completely gone?
Oh yeah. I mean, of course, sometimes
You have
it
to
does.
like remind
Sometimes,
yourself,
but
hey, what are you doing?
yeah, yeah, exactly. I just have to ground myself and
Yeah.
stop and think, you know, whoa, you know.
I'm the same way.
Remember everything.
I'm the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. You know, that's it. It's you know, I've said to quite a lot of people that, you know, no one who's had a near-death experience comes back as like this superhuman. You know, you come back and you've learned an awful lot, and you bring as much as you can back with you. You're a changed person. I'm totally changed, but I'm still human. You know, I mean, you know, interestingly, I mean, I had to, it wasn't until about 6 months after my accident itself that I suffered post-traumatic stress disorder. You know, I figured I was fine at first because I was feeling great because I just had this wonderful experience, you know, and they actually sent in, you know, a psychiatrist to see me in hospital. And they said, well, you know, you need to speak to a psychiatrist after what you've been through. And he said, yeah, he's fine. He's okay. You know? But I wasn't 6 months later. So, yeah. So again, I realized that I'm living in a human shell still, and I still carry the same emotions that I've always had, but I just know how to, you know, deal with them and drive them a bit better now to stop them skidding off the road. I was going to say the tracks then, but
pun. So you would say that you came back more spiritual. You had, you know, more of a spiritual life and spirituality. Did you become religious? Did you adapt or adopt a spiritual practice of meditation, of prayer, of service and things like that? Obviously through the art and stuff is but that's in every religion, right? The iconography and the art and the music, you know, the embodiment to get them closer to God kind of thing. But as far as spiritual practices, did you have some of those as well?
I did actually. That came along, yeah. I discovered a spiritualist church in the town where I was recovering. And so I went and walked through their doorway, and I was in pretty bad shape still at that point. And I sat through one of their services, and at the end, we had coffee, and somebody turned around to me and said, look, we don't normally do this, but we don't invite people along. But, you know, but we have a spiritual healing sessions on Thursdays. Why don't you come along? I said, yeah, great. So I still go now. And I don't just go for healing, you know, physically, or if I need healing, I go because that's my way of connecting with God, the universe, and all my guides. You know, it's like the moment is just so beautiful, and it's just it really is. Everything just stops at that point, and the connections are always really powerful every week that I go. So I find that that's my way of going to church, if you like. You know, I went to quite a few of the services for quite some time afterwards, which is great. They're lovely people then, and the whole service was really lovely and put together really nicely. But I find that just going to spiritual healing with just a small amount of people in this small space is just so I don't know. I suppose it is like really like a form of meditation. It's going into, you know, but it's very strong, and I just feel great afterwards.
Now, you know, you're feeling that and feeling great after, right? So you say you like had this encounter with that light, the healing light, and the energy that was healing you as you felt it. Do you feel when you do going into the healing sessions and healing services, or even communing in your own time, do you feel like pulses or waves of that same light continuing to heal you, like when you need it, like going in through meditation and having that strong connection to source? Do you feel like it's still healing you and you get little waves of it in your body from time to time?
Absolutely, yeah. well, pretty much every time I go, I feel that. Some weeks it's stronger than others. And then I realize, obviously, it's when I needed it more, if I've been going through say a particularly stressful week, and I come through the other end when we finish healing, and I'm kind of sitting there and going, wow, that was really powerful. But the interesting thing is that the healers who are actually healing me, the physical healers, that is, they pick it up. They pick up because they're channeling, they're conducting the energy through. I used to turn around to them all the time and say, God, you guys are you're such brilliant healers. And every single one will deny it. They say, well, no, it's not me. I'm not, it's nothing to do with me. It's the guides that are sending through the energy, but they feel it as well. So if on one particular session, it's the energy is very powerful, they notice it as well. And we all have to sit down and kind of go, we're all exhausted, but in a really lovely way.
I know.
So so it's great.
That's so awesome. And there's so many, I love it too, because there's so many like connections with religion or lack thereof, right? Whether it's the Holy Spirit, people would call it that. Some would just call it healing energy. Some would call it prana, whatever. It's this beautiful life force that is like a gift to us, that heals us and that we can interact with and commune with, and it shows up when we need it, or we're feeling down or we're feeling overwhelmed. We can tap in through different spiritual practices and tap into that beautiful life source. And so it seems like you brought that with you and you're sharing that with other people, kind of leading them to it. And again, like even the healers, can feel it around you. I think that there's different mantles or gifts that you carry because you are in tune and you've been through it. So when you do tap in, you're more aware. Your awareness brings it as well. Like if you're not aware of it, you don't, there's not a faith thing connected. But once you've experienced it, then you can allow others to experience the same beauty and that euphoria that you've experienced as well.
Yeah, well, that's really beautifully put. Thank you. And it's interesting because I agree with you on that as well, that you've got to, not got to, but the best way to be able to receive any form of healing like that, or whatever it may be, or meditation, is to actually, you don't have to try hard, but you don't have to try, you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is be in the moment and just forget about the past, forget about the future, forget about what's going on outside of you. I mean, for example, the place where I go, it's the spiritualist church where I go to for healing. It's not a church when I go in there because all the lights are dim, but we just have candles lit. It's very calm. But right across, it's on this old alleyway that runs down to the river, and right across from the alleyway, the next building on, is a boxing gym, and so when you first go into the healing, you can hear these guys laying into a punch bag. They're young guys, and they're all training. And it's interesting. I always think to myself, oh no, this is going to be like really loud. And, how can I go into the healing space when these guys are aggressively laying in? But I don't. It's like, well, first of all, what I tell myself is, look, it's all about what you visualize as well. Rather than thinking, oh, that's an aggressive sound, I would think to myself, no, that's some guy who wants to teach some young kid, because it's young kids going there, how to stay off the streets and channel their aggression into something else, which is brilliant. And as soon as I do that, as soon as I do it, I kind of like, it fades out of my consciousness and I'm in that space, and it doesn't matter about that sound. It doesn't matter at all.
Wow.
So that's what's really important. And I think, it's something that we all find hard to do, because we live in a very fast society, don't we? And it's well, we've all been forced to do it this year, because we've got this pandemic, that's just, which is really interesting because everyone panicked at first. Well, they did here in the UK. People were like stripping the supermarket shelves, like
toilet paper.
It was the end of the world. Yeah, exactly. I don't know why, but that all went, and but after a bit, that initial panic settled, and there was this feeling of I don't know, like a sense of people actually enjoying being in the moment, if you like, being forced into staying at home and not rushing around, getting on trains, getting in cars and going to work. They literally had to stop and educate their kids at home, bake their own bread and stuff. And everyone was loving it at first. I thought, this is great.
Yeah.
but not to last, obviously.
Yeah, 100%. Like there's so many good things that have come from that, and you get to pick. You get to pick how you want to see it. You know, it's the inevitable. It is our reality, but you get to change your relationship with it. And there's a quote that says, if you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at will change. And just goes back to, you know, you hearing the boxing noises, and you changed the way that you looked at it, and boom, it changed for you. At least your association with it, and you was able to, it didn't affect you like it would affect everybody else, or how it used to affect you anyway. You know how to adapt to that in your mind and get over it. And versus like, I can't tap in now because there's a weird noise in the background. And we look for those things, you know, those reasons not to, if you will, you know, because everything's just not right. And we've all been there, especially with tapping into the spiritual work. Want to ask you this too, man. This is an interesting question. As far as channeling, or maybe even trying to contact the angelic type figures that were present during your near-death experience on the other side. Have you been contacted? Do you see their hand in your life moving things around through synchronicities, or have you tried to ask their names or any of that kind of stuff?
I don't actually see them because I'm not clairvoyant. The only thing that I do see is something that has continued, and in fact has been with me for the last 24 hours, interestingly enough, is this. I get this little blue flash of light, of blue light. It's like a small intense dot of blue light that is with me, and which has been really interesting because I think, wow, they're kind of working with me at the moment. And there's other little signs that I get, other little signals. You know, I sometimes feel, if I go to healing, before I've even sat down, as soon as I walk in there, before we even start the healing, I feel a sensation right through the middle of my forehead where there's energy going in, and I feel like straight away they're connecting with me. But as far as they are concerned, I figured one thing I learned when I was there, that those guides hadn't suddenly just turned up because I'd gone onto a train. They'd been with me, as I said earlier, throughout my whole life. And I just wasn't able to acknowledge that, you know, I wasn't allowing them in. Whereas now I allow them in. So I'm aware of their presence, and I call upon them when I want to. And even if it's for something really small that's concerning me, I will ask them. And, you know, I'm humble. I'm always humbled when I ask, because just in the same way as if somebody helped me and was being really kind, I would be humble in that way. But it's not in the same kind of like, I'm not worthy and I need to get on my knees to you. You know, there's a much freer connection. So it's something that I just kind of try and say to everybody and anyone, that we've all got guides. They're all there, and we don't have to have a horrible accident like me or a near-death experience. Even they're with us all. You know, that's what I figured.
Now, what about you know, having this awakening and knowing who you were and knowing how you're connected, and all this stuff changed about you, right? Your life and your relationships and stuff like that. As far as you owning your story, owning your truths, coming out to family and saying, hey, I'm going to be vocal about this, because it's one thing to have it happen, but it's another thing to make it your life's work and to be vocal about it. Did you receive any resistance, or at least was there like within your own heart to, you need to keep this to yourself, or people are going to think you're crazy and that kind of stuff before you came out and owned your story?
The only people I went through that with was right at the beginning with my family, actually. I think because it was so important to me that I really wanted them to understand it and believe it. I didn't think they would dismiss it, but I wanted them to actually get it. And my parents especially, because they got their own faith. They're both Christians, and they knew that I'd pretty much rejected the whole idea of going to church as a child. And, you know, they'd say that they were very liberal. They said, that's cool, you stay at home. So I did. And so I thought, I don't know how they're going to take this one at all. So it took me a week to tell them. But when I did tell them, it was amazing, because my mother turned around, they both listened, and my mum said, yeah, we know. I said, you know, how do you know? She said, well, every time we leave this hospital, we walk away, and she said, we both say to each other, he's got that glow again. He's glowing. It's like every time we come in to see you, you've got this, you can hardly move, but you've just got this energy that's helping everyone around you, nurses or everything. And it's just very strong and powerful. So they got it straight away. So that was great. So in all fairness, I figured that I would face a lot more resistance than what I have, especially because I went, I wrote that piece of music and it was like performed, just a year after I'd had the accident, I think, a bit more than that, 18 months on. So, it was by that stage, I was already doing interviews in the press and going on the TV and talking about it. And people just got it, And so there's going to be people who are going to resist it. Obviously, I've found now I've got this book coming out. I've been doing a lot more interviews with people like yourself. So there's social media. So obviously that is much more open. And it's not that bad, I'm saying all this now. They're probably going to come jumping at me, aren't they? But in all fairness, there's just been one or two people who've turned around and said, hey, this guy's a fake. He's just had to make money out of us and stuff, which is like crazy, because if they listen to the whole story and if they listen to me the whole interview, they will realize that I'm saying, look, it's all free. If you want to listen to the music, go to my website and stream it. I'm not charging. But of course the book has to be, that's on Amazon, it's for sale. That's it's hard to say this without it sounding really crass, but it's not about how much money goes in my bank account. It's all about how many people get the story and are touched by it, and how many lives connect with it. And that's basically what it's all about.
That's what it is. And money helps you reach more people. If you wanted to host your own events, or you want to do your own retreats, or being able to pay a publicist, or be able to get out there. So everything comes full circle for sure, for you stepping out. So early on, you were covered by The Guardian. There was a bunch of big press and stuff like that, being in the TV and stuff, and a lot of people picked up your story. And did it blow up really quick? Were you surprised? Like, you were on Coast to Coast AM, a bunch of really big platforms and stuff like that.
Yeah, I kind of was and I kind of wasn't, because I had early notions of that. Because when I wrote that first piece of music for orchestra, I never knew that it was an orchestra would actually play it, but they did, it happened. That came together, and that concert sold out, because what had happened was the local orchestra said to me, look, would you mind talking to the local press? That's what we normally do if a composer's written a piece of music. I said, yeah, sure. They said just a couple of lines, and I spoke to the local press, and they remembered me, and they said, oh yeah, this is a great story. It's going on the front cover. So it went on the front cover. Then the phones didn't stop ringing. Then the BBC wanted to come and interview me. And then I realized at that point that, wow, I'm not only being helped creatively, but they're helping me to get this story out there. So it felt like that with the next stage of my journey, which is the book. It was interesting because it all started, I guess, before the book had even been published. I'd sent an email to Dr. Raymond Moody, because he's the guy who came up with the phrase near-death experience. He's done loads of research into it, and I figured, why not send him a copy? Who knows, And I heard nothing, and then a couple of months later, his manager got in touch with me and said, I've just seen your email to Raymond, and I've looked at your website. It's amazing. He's going to love this. He just overlooked it because he gets so much stuff. So she said, I'm going to make sure that he reads the manuscript, and then I'm going to get back to you. So she did get back. She said, yeah, Raymond loves it. She said, it looks like he'll probably write an acknowledgement for you when it comes out. I said, fantastic. And then she got back later on that day. She said, actually, he wants to write the foreword for it. So